Welcome to episode 138 of Beyond the Brick. I'm Joshua Hanlon.
And I'm Matthew Kay.
And this episode of Beyond the Brick is brought to you by Brickmania. Brickmania makes historically accurate and sturdy Lego models, and our featured Brickmania kit this week is the new Sopwith Camel World War I biplane kit. So this is obviously a very famous plane from World War I, and the Brickmania kit is really true to life reenactment of the kit. It's a really, really great model, almost 300 pieces, some really great brick arms machine guns you get with the kit as well. Definitely encourage you to check this kit out. I'll have a link to their website and this kit, brickmania.com, in the description below. Now, joining us on the show tonight, we have Wayne Hussey. He is 60 years old, the director of BrickCon out in Seattle, and a member of Sea-Lug and the Puget Sound Lego Train Club. So thanks for joining us on the show, Wayne. It's great to have you on.
Yeah, you're welcome. Thank you for having me.
And if you just want to start off by telling us a little bit about your history with Lego, like I mentioned there, you're the director of BrickCon. Were you one of the founders of the BrickCon group?
Yes, actually, it comes from being part of Sea-Lug. When Sea-Lug started back in about 98 or 99, that's when we started getting together, and then BrickFest happened, and we went, oh, we might want to do that. So by 2002, we were able to get our first BrickCon together, although at that time it was just Northwest BrickCon. But I've been associated with Lego for about 40 years, and only online for the last 15. So 25 years there going, well, I like to build with Lego, and I don't know if anybody else does, but I do.
Yeah, trying to find other like-minded people out there can be hard. And I know
that really made the difference. I mean,
the power of the internet, right?
Power of the internet. That's right. Bring people together.
Mm-hmm. So did you build with it as a kid then, or was it something you kind of came into later in life?
I actually had some experience building with some Lego early on, about in the mid-'60s, but that was with a friend who had some Lego, and I didn't even think at the time that I could get some Lego of my own, and so only when I visited his house that I was able to play with it. And I didn't think much about it for many years until when I got out of the military and started college, and I went to my niece's first Christmas, and someone had put a box of Lego under the Christmas tree for her, and went, oh, you mean I can buy it myself? And that was sort of the starting point. I mean, from that point on, I have just been building and buying Lego all the time.
Now, one of the best things about Lego is that you can buy it and you continue to have it. It doesn't go away unless you do something bad to it. So, does that ever kind of strike you as you have to deal with so much if you've been buying for this many years? Like, are you running into storage issues? What's that like for you?
That's an understatement in my case. My collection's absolutely huge. Well, it's my wife's and my collection because she's also a builder and a buyer. And we think about 2 million pieces in our collection.
What?
And storing it is the most of what we do, and that's because the space that I have to build in has been just overcome with all the stuff we've got, to the point where the last couple of years I almost have not been able to build because I have no open table space to build on. So I've gotten a small advantage in that BrickCon now has a warehouse, and I'm allowing myself to store some of my stuff there. So that eases the storage at the house.
Always the warehouse, right?
It's all in the warehouse, yeah. But that's
awesome.
still going to take a bit of time to finish organizing, probably January or so before I can really start building again.
Wow.
But then, hey, once I start building, maybe I'll make some new stuff.
Definitely.
Mm-hmm. Along the same lines of having your massive collection there, I believe, if I have this right, you have attempted over the years to acquire at least one of every element Lego's ever produced. Is that right?
That is my goal. I've been doing pretty good at it until recently when they've just exploded with certain themes. Bionicle nearly sank me. And then, of course, they said, well, we're not going to do Bionicle anymore. Oh, okay. and they immediately started Heroes, so it's really the same thing. But yeah, I've probably got, I'm guessing about 95% of every piece they've ever made. And that goes all the way back to their very first binding bricks that didn't even have their logo or anything on it.
So do you have any of the early toys as well, like the wooden?
Yeah, I have some of the wood toys. Yep, and those are kind of interesting. My wife and I have many times gone on to European auctions trying to, through eBay, trying to get a duck or some of the other iconic ones, and we're constantly outbid. But we have a budget, and other people have a bigger budget. I mean,
that's how life is, right?
When the price gets over $800 for a duck, it's kind of like, well, I think we probably let it go this time.
There is a stopping point eventually.
Well, I mean, I'm not after collecting everything Lego ever made, just they're plastic.
Now, so this is an interesting combination. So some people, they're typically, and I guess there's a lot of people that do both, but they're either hardcore collectors or they're hardcore builders. But hardcore collecting every element is a lot different than like hardcore collecting like every town set. So you're kind of just doing elements, which makes me think
elements. When the new year comes out, I look very carefully at the outside of the boxes and say, well, how many pieces are in there that are brand new that I've never seen before? And those then get on my list, and whether I buy that set or another set depends on how many I get to cross over. Unfortunately, Lego tends to, right now, put at least 1 to 5 elements into sets that are unique. In other words, the only place you can get that element is in, in that set. And so now I've been kind of relegated to go back to BrickLink to try to get certain pieces.
So you find yourself doing a lot of purchasing on BrickLink as opposed to just buying a bunch of sets at a store?
Well, okay, if I buy a set that has like, it costs $200, I mean a big set, right? And in it has 1 or 2 unique elements. Or I can go to BrickLink and buy the same parts for $15 or $20.
Yeah.
And I don't have to store all the rest of the set.
That's a pretty easy cost-benefit equation there, yeah.
Yeah, it gets that way. For the older parts, the ones that are obscure and ones I don't necessarily have, then it's a matter of finding where they are, what they are. Because what I am missing is what I don't know I don't have, if that makes sense.
I think so.
As soon as I know it exists, then I'm out after it, and I'll usually obtain it in a short period of time.
Now, does that include minifigs as well? When you say every element, do you try to collect all the minifigs?
And that's where it got really bad about 2000. 99, they started the Star Wars, and in 2000, and since, I haven't been able to keep up with the minifigures. I think I have them all. I try to keep an eye on it, but when they're putting out 200-300 minifigures new a year, it's really tough. So I don't know where I'm at with minifigures, but with my new storage space, I may be able to spread it out and figure it out again. But I knew I was up to date in 2000. But that's been 14 years since I've really been up to date on my minifigures.
There's been a couple minifigs released since then. It's fair to say.
Just a few. I think BrickLink shows about 1,500 different minifigures. And I figure I'd probably have, 1,200 of those. But minifigures not the only one. There's also Duplo figures. And that one's a little less easy to come by as far as knowing what's out there. You just almost have to buy every set. And that's just, well, of course, with Duplo, they're the ones that come up with the newest pieces all the time. So, but I do Duplo, well, every theme that Lego comes out with, I am dabbled in simply because of the elements. Some elements show up only in a Friends theme and don't show up in a regular system theme. So I end up having to get the Friends, which I don't mind a bit. I think they're great sets.
Definitely. There's some wonderful colors coming out of that theme.
That's the one thing I don't spend a lot of time on. I do agree. There are a lot of great colors in there, but if a 2x4 brick is red, I'm done. I don't need the blue one. I don't need the chartreuse one. I don't need the purple one. I got a red one. That's enough. But that's a pretty easy part to get. But some of the parts, people confuse when I say that I'm trying it for every element. They say, well, do you worry about color? Not at all. But I do worry about printing, and that's where the minifigures come in as a big deal, and then all the different elements that Lego has printed over the years. I don't go for stickers, but I do go for printed elements.
That's interesting. So some people, they completely disregard elements for the most part, and they really concern themselves with color and rare colors that have only come out in like one part ever, and all that kind of stuff. So lots of approaches to this type of thing.
Well, there's as many differences in the way we collect as there are people who do the collecting.
Yeah, it's true. That's true.
Yeah. That's a very good point there. So, very big undertaking you've taken here. I'd imagine quite a lot of different pieces. Do you have photos of any of some of all these pieces you've collected over the years anywhere online, or have you not taken the time to photograph that?
I started it back on BrickShelf about 2000, and that's about the last time I really did any. I really do plan to get some photography going of it. It's just a monumental task. I've got some tables down at the warehouse where I've been spreading pieces the last couple of days, because when I moved my storage unit that I keep the pieces in, I had to break it all apart, and I just dumped the pieces in boxes. And I've dumped out a few boxes onto tables to spread them out and figure out what I have. And it's hours and hours of sorting just to get them into the pile that's the Scala, the pile that's the Belleville, the pile that's the Fabuland, the pile that's the regular bricks, the Technic beams, the you name it, the town windows and doors and things like that. So it's coming along, but it's taking a lot of time, and it's going to take much more time. But yes, the ultimate goal is to communicate all these different elements. I'm not sure how I'm going to do that, but that's where I'm going.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so got a lot of work cut out for you there, but definitely cool if you can get photos and stuff like that posted online for people.
Well, again, you're back to BrickLink has a lot of the information. Some of it's done with the LDraw tool, and a lot of it's done with photography. But it's still, there's stuff I know I have that BrickLink isn't aware of, or many other people aren't aware of.
Sure. Now, we covered this a little bit at the very beginning of the show, your history with BrickCon, but if you want to, can you take us through a little bit what the first convention that you guys kind of organized coming out of CLUG was like? I'm sure, obviously, the first one is always going to be one of the toughest, getting it together for the first time. What was that experience like?
Well, we had a couple of people were involved getting the venue set up and doing all the other stuff, and it wasn't a true convention. It was much more of a show. But my involvement at that time was more of as a member of the CLUG group rather than anything to do with the steering committee or how BrickCon was being put on at the time. It was about 2 years after that I started really getting involved with what BrickCon was doing. But the first one was in 2002, and it was shortly after I got laid off the last time I had a full-time steady job. And that layoff enabled me to have the time and money together at the same point to put together my Issaquah class ferry boat, which is a 7-foot-long minifig scale ferry boat that actually matches many of the details exactly as a real boat that plies between ferry docks in the Seattle area. So it was my inspiration. Started that, I think, in 1980, a little earlier than that. It was one of the first things I planned, but it took 25 years to complete. Gathering the pieces, figuring out how to build it. Yeah.
I mean, in that day, now that could be accomplished with maybe several massive BrickLink orders, but you're talking about, there really was no way to source massive quantities of parts. So that time frame is completely not ridiculous at all. That sounds about right.
Right, and it was completed just very shortly after I got online. But one of the parts I used was a 1x6 by 5, 4, 3. Anyway, the old-fashioned window, about that size. And I used over 100 of them, and they all had to be white framed. And the common color was red frame. Easy to get those. So I spent a lot of time on eBay getting the 100 windows I needed for the sides of the boat. So, but yes, I did do a couple of orders in there. I think I used BrickLink to get my seats for the interior. So, yeah, there was some BrickLink ordering, but for the most part, I had gathered, I would say, 75% of the parts before BrickLink and I got together.
Wow. That is a
That,
monumental undertaking.
yeah,
Now, this is an off-topic question, but I feel like it might be somewhat meaningful. Have you ever been to Billund, or did you go to Billund during that time period? Because I can imagine that would be the only
No.
place to source that, like a large quantity during that time.
No, and in fact, in '91, I actually was working with some guy, and he and I had worked out this grand plan to build a neat model for display. And I wrote to the Lego company in Enfield and said, hey, could you guys source us some bricks? And they wrote back, and it was almost a nasty gram, says, well, we don't do that. We have a model shop that does that. So it was very negative, and it's very interesting to watch. This is back in '91. Very interesting to watch how they've turned around, and they are much more willing to associate with builders to do large projects. So now they have their Lego Certified Professional program, and if it weren't for my constantly being busy doing other stuff, I might have gotten into that when it first opened.
And now they also have, the acronym is escaping me, but it's like a Lego Certified Project, or so it's like a one-off. If a lug wants to do like a one-off commission for somebody, they can run it through Lego.
There is that, but I haven't heard very much about people actually taking that over or taking on that particular ability. It's out there as an offer, but I know that C-Log hasn't acted on it yet.
Yeah,
very intriguing.
Definitely. The company is willing to definitely work with people nowadays, yeah.
Well, I was an AFOL before anyone knew what the term was, and I understand how they wouldn't work with adult builders. I mean...
What is it? Yeah, they don't even know what they're looking at, yeah.
No, they didn't know what the demographic was at all. Now that's changed a little bit, just a little bit, and I'm hoping it'll change more.
Definitely.
That they start actually focusing on the demographic that is the adult builders, because even though, yes, we're only 1/20th of the number of people who buy stuff, we buy 10 to 20 times what other people buy.
Sure.
So we're a reasonable demographic to cater to.
And catering to the demographic has more to do with like how you and us can influence children, or that maybe sounds a little bit creepy, but influence children through events, or they come to an event, they see all these cool models, and then they want to. One would hope that's like the thought process behind a lot of it.
Oh yeah, inspiration is definitely what we serve up at BrickCon.
Yeah.
The weirdest thing is is people see how massive some of our builds are. And they go, there's no way I could build that. And I says, well, you can. You just have to spend some time at it. It's not something you can just go down to the store and buy a kit for. You have to actually invest yourself into it a little bit.
It doesn't happen overnight.
The older kids get that, but the younger kids don't have a clue.
No. Now, you mentioned the creation of BrickCon, how it first started, but how has it snowballed in recent years to become what it is today?
Longevity. There's nothing else really to it. I don't think we've done anything special. My goal for BrickCon, if you have a little, slogan there, is make it better every year. That's the only thing I do. So if there's something that comes up that we could deal better with, I try to make sure that happens. If there's some material need we have that would, facilitate somebody's doing something, we do it. It's just, it's all about the builders and the public. If we can make everybody have a good time, then we're doing our job. The best part is, over the years, I've slowly gotten myself more involved with the BrickCon itself rather than just behind the scenes. I mean, for 10 years I've been involved in practically running it, but only in the last 2 to 3 years have I been able to enjoy more of it.
Now, you mentioned practically running it. How is BrickCon itself organized? You seem to be like the point man, but what's involved with the whole organization? It seems to be a more democratic, I guess, like convention than others.
Well, again, we're back to I talk to everybody who's part of it and get everybody to buy into what I buy into what they want, so they'll buy into what I want. It's just a trade-off. But there are 5 people who own BrickCon, and I'm the primary owner.
Sure.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so it works out well that you can do it that way. And now, are there any kind of big moments throughout the years that you've been putting on? Because I think BrickCon's been going for over 10 years now, right?
We're starting our 14th year.
Okay, yeah. So, 14 years now you're starting. Are there any any major moments throughout the years that you can remember that really helped form what BrickCon is today? Maybe any mishaps that you try not to have happen again?
Oh, there have been mishaps, but they don't come to mind right now because we're just fresh off of BrickCon, and it ran so smoothly. It's like, wow. I mean, there was no real major headaches at all. But yeah, we've had our headaches. Most of but most of it's just been incremental. It's like anything else. You don't reach for the apple until the tree's grown. You know, you just got to do it in the order that happens. We've grown incrementally because we've focused on the builders and the visitors. We don't focus on the money at all. I mean, it takes care of itself. Whereas I think that may not be true for all events.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that's definitely true. So it's great to hear that, and it sounds like you definitely do a fairly good job running that. So you mentioned that you just had an event, what was that, maybe a month or two ago now, that BrickCon took place, a month now. How did this year's event go, in your opinion? It sounded like it went fairly well. Were you happy with the turnout?
Oh, really well. We set a new record for visitors. We've been doing about close to 12,000 last 2 years. This year we did 13,000. So we've had a significant increase there. The builds, for me, what I see on the floor when I do have time to see it, they've just been phenomenal and always getting better. It just I wish I could contribute more from the building standpoint. But maybe next couple of years, now that I have some, I will earn some space for myself to actually build with.
Definitely.
That's the big one.
Now, BrickCon is definitely somewhat constrained by space. Would you agree with that?
Oh, absolutely. We'd love to have at least twice the space we have. But we're also constrained by the Seattle environment of convention space. There just isn't any. There's the Washington State Convention Center that has more space than we would ever use, but they are so entrenched in large events that our event is too small for them to cater to, and so we could not get the kind of support from them that we need, in that we'd like to have the first weekend of October, in that we'd like to have lots of public traffic flow that's there without advertising, which is what we do get with the Seattle Center. So yeah, there just isn't any spaces around. We've been investigating for several years, trying to get more. Right now we run in about 35,000 square feet for our exhibition, and then we run a separate space for our convention, which this year would happen to be next door, and that was great.
Yeah, and so most events, to my knowledge, and by most I mean Brick Fair, Brick World, what does it average, around 100,000 square feet? So that is a significant.
Yeah, easy. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, we'd love to have 50,000 or 60,000, no problem, but it's just not available to us.
Very interesting. So now, what does come to mind, though, is that smaller universities or more exclusive universities tend to be smaller. So like Harvard doesn't have 200,000 students. It's pretty tight little group there. So does BrickCon kind of perhaps follow somewhat of a similar pattern, where it's smaller but the mocks are better, the builders are very talented? Do you feel like that might be the case?
I don't want to say the mocks are better, because I've seen some awesome stuff coming out of the other.
That's a horrible phrase to use. The mocks are better. There are one.
But in answer to your question, yes, we are a smaller event than the others in many ways. That's why we've only been able to claim age as our thing that we have. With longest continuously running convention. But we've had a very organic growth. We started out with like 50 people on the very first event, and we've grown from there, and we're now at about 450. We've crossed over 500 once, but we're small and friendly, I guess is the best way to say it. Most everybody comes and they know people when they leave, and many people are returning to see the friends they saw last year, or the year before, or the year before that. So it's almost gotten to be a reunion every year, which is cool.
That is
Everybody
really
gets
cool.
friendly, and then we of course invite new people to come along. And we do get, I'd say we had about 40 or 50 names that I had never seen before this year, and maybe more than that. I may have seen their names like online, and just now seeing their names on my roll list of people attending.
Sure. That's a really cool thought, yeah, that it just kind of organically kind of grows and becomes this really great thing.
Well, I appreciate you. I want you guys to come on over. You know, hey, you'll see how great it is.
Yes,
Come on
yes.
down,
Yes.
see how great it is.
I can only imagine how wonderful it would be. From everybody I've ever heard that's ever gone to BrickCon, they say it's like Disney World doesn't even compare. It's like, they're like, BrickCon is the best thing ever. So.
Well, I appreciate that. I'm sure the other events are just as nice as ours. It's just that we just have a longer following. People have been doing it for longer.
Sure, there's something special about it too. I mean, you're right. You're next to the Space Needle, all that stuff.
The center is awesome. The center campus is an awesome place to be. So yeah.
And now this year you had the opening ceremonies in a new space. Talk about that a little bit.
Just a second here.
Sorry.
It's not for me. Anyway, yes.
Phone issues.
Call from.
Yeah. It'll ring one more time. It'll be done. There we are. Yeah, one of the things we've had in our, talk about the space we need and the growth we've done over the years. Many of the buildings that we have used down at the Seattle Center have been reallocated and not for our use. And at the time, it forced us to move to a different location. So each time we moved, we went to a slightly larger location. Well, now we're at the largest location they have available, but the secondary building that we used last year, and actually for the last 3 years, they've reallocated, and we could not have it this year. So we had to scramble and find another place. Well, what we lucked into is the Cornish Playhouse, which is a theater right next to the exhibition hall where we're at. And with that, we got a much better space than we've ever had before for our convention. So it's like we keep winning, even if we don't.
So it was like a theater with a really nice raised, stadium seating.
Yeah, I remember seeing those photos.
The pictures look ridiculous.
It's a real theater with a real stage. They put on plays and maybe ballets, I don't know. But yeah, it's associated with the Cornish College of Arts, and they do theater arts, and that's what they use the building for. We happen to, again, luck into the time of year when they don't have a particular production going on. So,
Lucky.
Yeah, I think that's the story of BrickCon. It's luck.
lucky.
Of course, it is someone out, all of us involved with it, reaching out and finding the opportunities to make it lucky for us.
Definitely. All about the people.
Did you have a keynote speaker at the opening ceremonies this year? I can't remember if there was.
At our keynote, we have 4 ceremonies. We have an opening, a keynote, an awards, and a closing. So yeah, at our keynote speak, we had Ryan McNaught from Australia, certified professional builder.
Very cool. Yeah, I couldn't remember that. Very cool. Yeah, that's awesome. Those are always great to hear. Interesting keynote speakers like that at the conventions. That's one of the highlights for sure.
Well, we're shopping for another keynote for next year. So if you get a heads up going, I'd be liking to hear it.
Okay.
You hear someone who wants to talk in front of 400 avid Lego fans. I'd be willing to talk to them and find out if they're willing to talk for us.
Definitely. We'll see if we can help you find anybody then, for sure. And now I wanted to make sure we covered some of your interesting builds. We talked about some of them earlier. Another really cool one that you've done. This was a year or two back now. The Batcave build, and this was actually a collaboration with another builder. You want to talk a little bit about this build?
Yeah, it was a couple years ago. Sea Dog had just gotten our first association with the Emerald City Comic Con, and they says, "Hey, build something for the Comic Con." And my friend Carlisle Livingston and myself sat down and said, "Well, what could we build?" "Well, how about a Batcave?" And so we started working on a Batcave, and we did a little bit of a mock-up, little tiny mock-up that said, "Well, let's see, we've got the Batmobile here and his little control center here, and add this and that," and we just built it up over a period of about 3 months. And Carlisle did all the surface work with all the rock work, and I did the mechanics and the structural work, and the combination was, in my opinion, awesome. And a lot of people
you do what you like, and you don't do what you don't.
Yeah, a lot of people have agreed that we did a good job. But I put about 60% of the look of it on Carlisle, because he's the artist. He's the real. I mean, I'm a pretty good builder, but he was the artist on that one.
And so what was collaboration like? I know building is kind of a solitary activity, or it can be. You do it by yourself. You don't really have to talk to anybody. But building together kind of requires like communication or deciding on stuff before.
Well, yeah, that's just it. You sit there and you while you're sitting there tinkering, putting pieces together, you're just talking. And ideas come up, and you say, "Well, that's a pretty good one. Let's put it in." Or, "Nah, that really sucks. I don't even want to do that." So, yeah, there's a lot of back and forth on that. We had a couple of heated arguments about, well, it ought to go this way, and no, it ought to go that way. And, well, but we got through it. We kept working on it. And the results, sort of speak for themselves. We've had numerous people ask us to get our Batcave in their book or their magazine. And in a couple of cases, that's happened. In a couple of other cases, it's like, well, you're asking us at the wrong time. If you caught us when we had a couple of weeks free, yeah, we could do it and we could help you. But right now, he's really busy. I'm really busy. We don't have the time to, assist. We just got a call from, I think it's Warner Brothers. They want us to put it down in Las Vegas in a couple of months, and I'm going, or next month, I think. And I'm going, I don't know that we can do that. It's just not in our bandwidth.
Yeah. It's just like they wanted a trade show or something, or?
Yeah, it's Warner Brothers. They were doing some sort of probably a celebration of the Batman 75th anniversary theme, and wanted the Batcave to be in their wall of stuff, and that was the way I got it described. And I was like, well, that sounds like a really fun thing to do, but first of all, if it's not Carlisle or myself, nobody could really put that thing together right, or we wouldn't trust anybody to put it together right. So that means one of us or both of us have to be flown down there, and neither of us have the time.
Yeah.
So it's just like, well, yeah, sure, I'll ship it to you, and as a box full of parts arrives, you get the fun part of trying to put it together.
There's a nightmare.
It would definitely not show well.
No.
And this really is a massive build. How does this break down for movement? Is there different sections you guys build it in so you can move it without having to move the entire thing at once?
Yeah, there are 4 major sections. There's the 3 major sections sideways, and then there's a roof part on top. And the roof part ties it all together. And it's just 4 big sections, and any one of those sections can be moved by one person.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so
that works out. It does take 2 people to put the roof on together, but you can direct anyone else to do that.
Sure.
So,
setup isn't too hard for that then.
Pardon?
Setup isn't too hard for that then.
No, it's not too hard, but you do have to know what you got to do to make it set up. I mean, there's some bridge work stuff. That stuff goes between sections that has to be taken care of. But they use a joint that I came up with many years ago. It has to do with an axle and the axle hole in a 1x2 brick. and it, instead of the pin or the clip, it slides in instead of snapping in. And when you're doing large structures coming together that way, and you need to have them aligned, that alignment works very well, and it doesn't cause any jarring to the rest of the assembly. So that was really important for that construction at large.
Sure.
Mm-hmm. So I know when you guys first posted this build, it kind of went viral a little bit. There were a lot of sites, asking you to do interviews and stuff like that. What was some of that like? Was that the first time you'd had a build go really popular online with a lot of sites posting it and stuff, or what were some of the?
That was an exciting time. From my point of view, I'm not very web savvy, and so Carlisle was the one reporting to me how many people had gone to visit the site and saw the pictures. But yeah, we've probably been, and I say that collectively because he and I together did the build, but he's done most of the work on responding to interviews and such. And together we did do a write-up for Brick Journal. He did one section, I did another section. But for the most part, he's the one that's been fielding the media queries on it. And I think that's probably proper because what I did was all in the background. It's what he did in the foreground that really made the thing work, in my opinion. Of course, he'll say the opposite, but
vice versa.
But that's just the way we are. I really think that there's no way that either of us could have built it, but together, it's what we figured out to do, and we did. I think we did a really good job of it.
Oh, and so here's the question everyone might be asking: what's next for you two?
Well, that's the problem, is that he's been so busy with his other job, which I don't have another job other than BrickCon, so it's been really tough to work on a project together. We started one last year, but it petered out because of his extra work and my not having any real space to work with. So maybe in the next year or so we can reattach that collaboration and get something going.
That would be very cool.
As far as what to build, we each have ideas. We just haven't fleshed any out.
So it's all on the table.
Oh yeah.
Oh boy.
It's in bricks. It's hidden in the bricks. We'll find them.
Just put a blindfold on, start putting stuff together, and see what happens.
Yeah, I don't think it'll quite work out. But that's not a bad idea. Well, we're both big sci-fi fans, so there are lots of ideas around and about various sci-fi scenes, not necessarily from movies, but from our imaginations. He's come up with one that almost came up and came together, and that was like a sort of a Jetsons drive-in theater.
Huh.
If you can imagine that, yeah.
And
he's done some work on that, and other one I've come up with is like a mining base on a foreign planet.
So do you think it will be based on an intellectual property like the Jetsons, or do you think you're just going to go far off and do something?
No. The intellectual property with the Batman was just because it was for a comic show.
Yeah.
But, no, if it's the not associated for a comic show or not associated, we'd probably go with our own imaginations and maybe borrow elements or at least design ideas from this area and that area. But for the most part, we're just going to talk about it and figure it out together.
Definitely.
Mm-hmm. Well, that is a very cool build. Now, since you were saying it's still taking you around to events and stuff when you have the chance, I'm assuming it's still together. Where is that displayed? Is that at your house or his house?
It's not on display, but it is in storage over at Carlisle's house. Again, I don't have the room for it. In fact, the ferry boat that I produced for the very first BrickCon, I literally have not seen in almost 10 years. It's being stored for me by a maritime museum down at Seattle's waterfront, and I've contacted them a couple of times to make sure that they still know it's mine, and that I do intend to get it back. And sometime, maybe this year or early next, I do intend to reacquire it, update it, and/or clean it up, and perhaps show it for next BrickCon.
That would be very cool. That's like maybe the oldest mock ever. Or that's horrible. That's not the oldest mock ever. Maybe the oldest eightfold creation. I don't know.
Nah, it's not that
Nah,
old. I mean,
nah.
it debuted in 2002. So,
Yeah. Oh well. Okay.
yeah, I
Yeah.
mean, I've got builds older than that myself.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
anyway,
I
but no,
wanted some title
what's
though, so I'm just trying to come up with
what
something.
might be cool about it is the fact that it shows again and people will be able to see it again. I
Yeah.
mean,
There you go.
fans of Lego will be able to see it, other than just the tourists who have seen it over the years,
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
for which I get no report back on whether they saw it and enjoyed it or, well, that's interesting, and walked away.
Yeah, it's hard to get the feedback on that, but a very very cool big build like that, and it seems like you like to do you like to do mostly fairly large builds. I know you've built
Yeah,
several like 10, 14 foot tall buildings and stuff like your
yeah.
Seattle.
I only have one 14-foot tall one. That's the Space Needle. But I have several that are 6 feet or taller or longer. So yeah, I tend to do mine in feet, whereas a lot of people do theirs in inches. I don't know, maybe. But I've always been entertained by the whole SHIP thing on the internet, and it's 100 suds long, and it's a spaceship, and I'm going, well, yeah. So what's so exciting about that? Other than, yeah, it's a lot of parts. Now, some of them have been awesome designs, and I really enjoy them, but they're not that big compared to some stuff I've done.
Mm-hmm. So you think most of the time bigger is better then, which I tend to agree with. Seeing some of your large builds.
It's in the detail. My builds are almost always based on a particular element that I want to make show. In other words, there's a design element, like, for example, my Smith Tower. It was the block of 6 windows with little details around it. I wanted to have that there. Well, in order to do that, it had to be a certain size. And that happened to be minifig scale. It's actually a little bit small for minifig scale, but it's fine when minifigs are applied to it. And that's the same thing with the Space Needle. The size of it is based on what it took to get the detail level I wanted into it. I built a microfig scale ship that showed up at a couple of BrickCons and other places since. That's still almost 4 feet long, but it's for people that where a plate is a single deck height. So I mean, I build in scale. I love the idea of scale. If it's anyway massive. Yes,
Yeah.
I like that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I remember back in the late 70s, I was looking through one of my sci-fi art books, and I saw this little spaceship painting, and I built it out of Lego, and it was about 7 feet long, but it was only about that big in diameter, and it was like, yeah, okay. So when I see people building ships now, I'm going, that's all right. Now, bigger, bigger, make it really big.
A really
And I'm not the only
significant.
one building big nowadays. That's the other thing. That's really neat. There have
There's
been
a
so many cool, really big mocks built lately.
Oh yeah.
And some of them have shown up at our event. Alice Finch has been famous for that.
Oh
Or
yeah,
Hogwarts.
her Hogwarts, and then obviously the builds she does with David Frank. Those are some massive, awesome builds there.
They're
Rivendell.
huge. They're hugely detailed. I mean, they're just every little bit is in where it needs to be, and it's all represented. There's nothing missing. Whereas on mine, I do kind of tend to shell it and not necessarily give all the detail.
Yeah. You can only do so much, right?
Well, yeah, there are limits.
Yeah.
Time, energy, money.
Needless to say, though, some very cool builds there. So I'll make sure to
Oh yeah,
include photos in the description to all the builds we talked about there. So if people haven't seen photos of these before, they can check those out.
yeah.
Now, we talked about BrickCon, and obviously you do a lot of work on that every year. Outside of BrickCon, do you think you'll be able to make it to any other conventions over the next year or so here?
I haven't really made a decision to do it. I keep thinking about it, talking about it, but part of it is that my wife, who's a school teacher, can't get the time off, and so it would not be as much fun without her. And so maybe in the next year or two, if she retires, we may be able to attend other events more easily.
So Brick Fair, Brick World.
Brick Fair, Brick World, Bricks by the Bay, Bricks Cascade, yeah, all of them, maybe.
That's awesome, yeah. You got to get out there.
Well, I went to a couple of Brick Fests that were down here in Portland, and I thought those were awesome, but I kept finding myself doing things. I mean, helping out here, helping out there. Just, I enjoy myself when I'm busy.
Yeah, you got to pitch in, right?
That's right. I mean, if it's obvious that it needs to be done, do it.
And now this is something I've noticed happens from time to time. Different event organizers will meet up at each other's events. So what was it, a couple years back you had like an event organizer fly-in, so like Todd Webb, Brian Bonahum all came out.
Everybody was there. It was not an direct invitation, but when I started seeing the names on the list, I went, this is a very good opportunity to get everybody sat down together and talk, just to meet each other, just to be, And so, yeah, we did. We had, I think, from about 6 different events, we had people sitting down and just visiting with each other and just kind of getting to know each other. And
so
that was cool.
Meeting of the powers at B or something like that.
Yeah, well, it was the year, I think, before Bricks by the Bay had their first event. That's how long ago it was. So that's what, about 6 years now?
Something like that. It was 2011, 12, 2010.
Yeah, something in there.
Something in there, definitely.
Yeah.
That is awesome.
But yes, and then a couple of times, Brian Bonahum has been to BrickCon since then.
Sure. Brian likes to get out there and visit the events. I've seen him at Brick Fair. It's nice to run into Brian, always.
Yeah, so I guess something to look forward to there. Hopefully you can make it to a few of the conventions in the future sometime. That'd be cool to see you at a few of the other ones outside of BrickCon.
I'd like to go there. It's just always a matter of everything has to balance.
Oh yeah, that's actually the kind of how it is with us and BrickCon. So we're gonna make it one of these years, but I don't know. Everything just has to balance out, like you said, and we'll make it eventually.
Don't worry, Wayne. School is tying us down too.
Okay.
Or both. The school hampers everything.
As you're in school, right?
Yes, we're in school. Not teaching school, just in school. So.
Hey, everybody's got to do it sometime.
Yeah, yep. You betcha. Now, Wayne, this is something I wanted to mention during the course of this interview, but a lot of us out there have watched Jess Gibson's blockumentary. And you were very, very prominently featured. A wonderful feature, by the way.
Thank you.
What was that experience like for you? I know I've talked to a couple of people involved in the making of that short documentary, but I wanted to get your take.
It was very interesting. It was very, very low-key, very easy to do. And his editing was awesome. But, yeah, it was just like conversation with you guys right now, just sitting here talking. So, how to say it was low-key. I mean, he's a nice guy. He knew what he was doing. There wasn't a lot of retakes or anything like that. Just set up and go.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
And you get to see what?
I say everybody talks about that one point where I dropped something.
Yeah, I was going to ask you about that actually. Yeah, so it's like boop.
Yeah, and the interesting thing is that I knew I was on camera. And so I wasn't going to react like I might ordinarily react. But at the same time, it wasn't a very important thing that I dropped. It was something I had worked on, and I'd already gone into it, got it mostly done, come back out of it, and those were just remnants of it left over. And when it went down, I went, oh, it was a surprise. But I did give a treat to the people at BrickCon one year when it was being played at a General Assembly just before it happened, and I stood there, and when it dropped in, I yelled, "Oh shit!" But the reality is, when something starts to fall, you can either try to catch it and maybe hurt yourself, or add to its damage, or you let it fall and you put it back together, and so it all comes down to it's
Yeah.
Lego.
Yeah. We'll put it back together. Yeah, exactly. That was the most humanistic part of the documentary for me, was seeing, oh, as like that, that happens to all of us, you know? I was just like, ah, man, you know? Mm.
It always hurts when it happens, but you always recover.
Yeah.
And if you can't recover, you rebuild it better. You know, whatever. It's
Sure.
that's
Yeah,
why
you
we
get
don't
to,
glue it together, because it's so much fun to watch it fall down.
totally. And you get to iron out the kinks when you put it back together, yeah.
That's right. Well, there's been a tradition over the years of watching people destroy a creation they spent long time on at the end of an event. Uh, I've watched a guy sweep a 4.5, 5 foot spaceship off a table into a bucket. And I'm like, wow, you really did that? There's a video on it. And a couple of years ago, I rolled my well, rolled isn't the right word. I had a great big old blue box, spaceships kind of a thing that I slid down the wacky race ramp, and people caught pictures of it. And it was one of my least favorite builds of all time. And so destroying it was good for me. So I didn't mind destroying it. The fun part is that it came apart in a couple of big sections, a whole bunch of small pieces. I only broke 3 pieces on the whole thing. I mean, something that big and heavy, and it only broke 3 pieces when it came apart. I don't feel bad about that. That's Lego. It's good stuff.
Yeah, it's always cool to see the after the convention takedowns and stuff. You see people just picking up giant chunks of their builds, throwing it in containers.
Yeah. The only bad part is physically breaking the pieces, though. That's a little sad.
Now, it depends on it if you don't have a replacement for it. If you have a replacement for it, it's no problem.
Yeah, probably not a good idea to like throw vintage Samsonite bricks, you know, just toss them around. Maybe not the best idea.
Well, I don't know. Some of the Samsonite bricks I have are pretty weak.
Yeah, they'll break a little easily there.
Well, no, I don't mean it that way. I mean,
No?
quality-wise.
Yes. There you go.
They aren't worth much from the beginning, then.
Pardon?
They aren't worth a whole lot from the beginning in their quality, then.
Well, again, remember, I'm very cogent of all the old pieces being made by various, corporations, and Samsonite got licensed from Lego to build a few parts, and their parts are okay, but they really aren't to the quality of Lego. But since they are Samsonite under a Lego license, they have the Lego logos on them, and so they're in my collection. But if I broke one of those, fortunately I have multiples of almost everything up there, I wouldn't be terribly upset. That's kind of where I was going with it.
It'd be, you'd get over it eventually. It'd be okay.
I'd be okay. I wouldn't break it on purpose, but if it broke, oh well.
Mm-hmm. Very nice. Well, I think to finish it out for us tonight, do you have a dream Lego set that you've always wanted Lego to make? And I know you've been in the community now for a very long time. Is there something over the years that you thought would be a really cool set?
Oh, I always thought that any of my bigger models would be a great set, and it would be cool if Lego would pick something like that up. But I think that the Batcave would be awesome. I can't imagine. Can you imagine? The boxes that arrive at your doorstep to build this thing, 600 pages of instructions, 35,000 parts, 4 motors, and, the light, sure, drop it on my doorstep, you bet.
It should be like a publicity stunt or something, like a Sears Kit Home Lego kit, $5,000, 2,000 pages, yeah.
That's the instructions, 5,000, okay?
Yeah, 2 years later, yeah.
Yeah, 2-year build, right, with the instructions. But I did actually, when I was doing my ferry boat, I had been doing the design on it for years, and when it came down to it, I had to redesign it from scratch, and I found errors I made in my original calculations. Sorry, my screen keeps popping up. Anyway, I can't see you right now. But in my original redesign, I had done it with LDraw, and so I actually had instructions for my ferry boat. But when I first published, I'll put the ferry boat out on display. People ask me, "Well, do you have instructions for that?" And I says, "Yeah, but you won't want to pay the price for them. Cost you a couple of $100 just for a set of instructions for it."
Wow.
Yeah. So that it can get pricey real quick then.
Well, I could probably let the instructions go for a couple of bucks now because it's not a big deal. But at that time, it was like, this is my baby. I really want to hang on to it. You know, you want instructions, you gotta pay me. Now it's like, that's old hat. You guys want to duplicate it? Be my guest.
Sure. It's like once it gets past.
Pardon?
It's like once it gets past a certain age, just open source it, right?
That's it. I've got other builds that, hey, you want to duplicate it? I'll show you how.
Yeah. Definitely.
Free of charge. Well, my Space Needle's one that comes to mind on that. It's a fairly complicated build. It took me about 15 years to figure it out. But part of that figuring out was the fact that you're basically making a nice, tall, thin column of Lego brick, and you're setting a great big thing on top of it that weighs, if it's just brick alone, about 50 to 60 pounds. And you want it to stay up there. And that was the engineering challenge on that one. And so there is inside of it an armature, a steel armature that keeps it from going sideways. The Lego brick is very good on a vertical stack. You can stack them, to the moon, and they wouldn't break vertically. But hit a wall slightly sideways, it'll crumble. So
yeah.
that was the challenge. And so I have a steel armature in there that its only purpose is to hold it from moving sideways. And there's a steel plate at the top, weighs 35 pounds, and it on top of the rest of the Lego is all resting on the Lego. It's not resting on the steel. The steel is only there to keep it from going sideways.
Wow. So you kind of built it around the steel almost.
Yeah, the steel is assembled as you assemble the model. Yeah.
That is awesome. Yeah, and there really isn't a good alternative to get around, not using steel unless you were to like glue it and then put it in a room with no wind.
But somebody walks up to it and touches it.
Exactly. Yeah.
That's why I have enough sideways to it that it could conceivably fall. And the first year when we first started tearing it down, I was going, "Don't get near it." Once I, pulled off some of the support structures, don't get near it. I don't want it to crash down. Yeah. I've learned since then it's fairly stable. So
that would not be a pretty sight.
I'm comfortable with it now.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So have you continued to take that creation to the BrickCon every year, or are you going to continue to take that for a few years to come then, you think?
Yeah, it's sort of it hasn't earned a People's Choice Award, but it is a people's favorite. People walk in, they see it, and it's in a position where people will automatically be drawn to it and stand and have their picture taken by it. And it's sitting next to a staircase so that people can climb up the stairs and see it at the top, and also be photographed from the bottom up looking at it and get them in the picture with the Space Needle. So it's a very big draw in that state. It's just not as big a draw as some of these awesome builds other people have been doing and getting the best of show and the People's Choice. But that's okay. Yeah, it's been up 3 times, and I expect it'll go up another 3 or 4 times before I get so tired of moving it. But actually, this year I've decided I will do some modifications to it to make it a little easier to assemble. Each year I've done a little bit, but this year I'll have enough space to actually do some real work on it.
Mm-hmm. Well, if you ever do decide to take it apart, you got to make sure you take a video of you throwing it against the ground or something, or pushing it over.
Oh, pushing it over would be really dangerous. There'd be a lot of broken pieces. But yeah, I have models I've had together for 10, 15 years, so it's not likely I'm going to tear it apart right away.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, cool build to hold on to for the future then. So you continue to take it around. It
debuted for the Space Needle's 50th anniversary. Maybe it'll debut or still be around for its 100th. Who knows? I won't be, but it may be.
That would be very cool, yeah. I guess something. Well, we'll have to figure out when the 100th anniversary comes around, see if that can still be displayed by it.
2062.
Okay, so I'll leave it a while there. But something to look forward to nonetheless. So should be able to see that for a few more years to come, and maybe your idea for a Batcave set based on your Batcave build will come around as well by then.
It may take that long, but that'd be cool.
Mm-hmm.
Of course, getting the parts is always not easy. I mean, there's a lot of slopes in that Batcave.
I'm sure ideas could put something together.
Yeah, you figure they can make more parts. They can make enough.
You know, as long as there's petroleum in the world, there'll be plastic, and as long as there's plastic, there should be Lego.
There you go.
Yeah.
Yeah, so on that note, I think that we'll finish it out for us tonight. It was great having you on the show, Wayne. I really enjoyed talking with you about some of the history of BrickCon and some of your really cool, massive builds that you've built over the years. Thanks for joining us. It was really nice talking with you.
Well, thank you, guys, for having me. Nice talking to you guys, too.
Always a pleasure.
Mm-hmm. And I wanted to remind people about the Brick Builders Club over at brickbuildersclub.com. Make sure you sign up today to start receiving your monthly box of cool Lego content like T-shirts and stickers and custom Lego pieces.
Brick Warriors?
Yes, yeah, Brick Warriors, all sorts of awesome stuff you can get in that. So that's brickbuildersclub.com. I'd encourage you to check that out, and I'll put a link to their website in the description of this video. I'll also include links to all of the builds we talked about on the show today, so you can check all those out if you haven't seen photos of the builds we talked about. Make sure to check those photos out as well. So thanks for watching, everybody. I'd encourage you to subscribe to the YouTube channel here at Beyond the Brick to keep up to date with everything we're doing, and we'll see you next week.